Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu diesem etwas besonderen Fragen- und Antwort-Video. First off, don't be scared that we will talk German for the rest of the video, because with this introduction I already answered a question from Joe McKinnon who asked whether I could start off the video speaking German, which I just did. Anyway, as you might know, I just returned from my vacation, which was pretty awesome for the most part. Here are some impressions from it. Lovely. Now, you might also wonder why I said that this Q&A video will be special. Well, it will be special because it will be completely unscripted. Usually, I pick out interesting questions and write a script for such a video, which I then basically read out loud. But not this time. I wanted to try something new, so I will be using my phone to look through the questions from Patreon, Facebook and Twitter and answer as many as possible absolutely spontaneously. And since I'm not a native English speaker, be prepared for a lot of and pauses between my words. Okay, let's get started with Patreon. And to my Q&A post, and we got 6 comments. Okay, first question. What is your workshop? Brands and prices of soldering stations, oscilloscope, power supplies, generators, etc. Well, that is a big question. So I don't think I can answer it completely, since I have so much equipment here, it would take forever. But I can tell you the minimum, like when you want to get started with electronics. So what I recommend, first off, is a lab bench power supply. I use the ELV DPS 5315. That is a German brand. It costs around 250 euro. It's not very cheap. But I'm not sure whether this power supply is available in your country, so another good alternative would be a Rigel lab bench power supply. Another piece of equipment you will need is a multimeter. I use the Metrohead Pro. Also not a cheap multimeter. This goes for I think 400–500 euro, so very pricey I think. For a beginner, something like the Unity UT61D is definitely recommended. It can do a lot of things, works really well. To this day I use it and it costs around 40–60 euro I think, I'm not sure, but for a beginner it is definitely worth the money. So the next piece of equipment is an oscilloscope, and I'm using the Infinivision MSOX3054T mixed signal oscilloscope from Keysight, which is very, very expensive. So for a beginner it is definitely not recommended. Keysight has some other scopes which are more beginner friendly. I think they just launched the 1000X series, which you can get for $400–600 or euro. So that is a pretty good scope. Or another pretty good beginner oscilloscope are the Rigel scopes, like the DS1052, or I think nowadays the updated model is the Rigel DS1054Z, which has 4 channels and it costs like 400 euro. It's pretty awesome for that price. So you can get that. The last piece of equipment which was mentioned in the question was a soldering station. And I've been using the ERSA Icon Pico soldering station, which you can see here. It goes for around 100–130 euro and I've been using it for 2 to 3 years now and it works pretty well. I can recommend it. Yeah, making sure that your workshop is not a mess is also a big part of the work. Okay, next question. What would you do if you were not an electronic DIY YouTuber? Well, I think I would be working as an electrical power engineer for a company. Okay, next question. How to build chippers smart home with microcontrollers? Chippers? I'm not sure what chippers means. So smart home sounds interesting. With microcontrollers definitely. It is on my to-do list, but feel free to let me know what chippers means. No idea, sorry. Next question. How do you pick the right fuse for a project? How many amps should it be rated for, slow or fast blow? Well, I'm not completely sure. I think there's a rule of thumb for that. So, for example, if your project draws a maximum of 500 milliamps, the rating for the fuse should be twice as high. So 1 amp, for example, to prevent your ICs to blow up when a short circuit occurs or something like that. I'm not completely sure. Better ask Google. But when it is about the, let me check, what was it? Slow or fast blow, you can, if you know your circuit has short current spikes, for example, a big inrush current, then you want a slow fuse, because you know when your circuit draws a maximum of 500 milliamps, it has a very short period of a current spike, which might be 2 amps. A fast 1 amp fuse would blow, so you go for a slow fuse. But if you know your circuit does not have any current spikes or something similar, you can go with a fast fuse to protect your ICs even better. Last question from Patreon. Tell something about you. Do you have kids? Are you single? Where do you live? Well, these are all very personal questions, which I rather not answer. Sorry about that. Okay, let's move on to Facebook, which has a total of, wait for it, drum rolls please, 180 comments. I'm pretty sure I will not be able to answer all of them, so let's start with the top ones. Robert Crone asks, have you ever faced a challenge or project that you weren't able to finish because it proved to be too difficult once you started? And Anis Gaoui says, I'm pretty sure that happens all the time with electronics. So Anis, you're correct. It happens all the time with electronics. And yes, it happened to me, of course. But I don't know if there's a practical example which I have in my head right now. What was too difficult? I didn't finish it. Well, of course, people will comment the quadcopter I never finished. But the quadcopter was not too difficult, it was just too time consuming, so I stopped it. But for the project, for the GreatScott channel, there wasn't a project which was too difficult, I think. Because I always choose projects which I can do, because I have to make a video every week. So they're not too difficult, some projects are just too time consuming for me to make for my channel. But of course, if I would go all out and look at all the projects possible, I think like 50% are too difficult for me. Next question from Raja Dixit, who says, would you be working with more microprocessors in the future? Raspberry Pi 3 has a lot of applications in the area of home automation and OpenCV. Well, home automation and OpenCV, which I'm not sure what it is right now, sounds awesome. Definitely interesting. It is on my to-do list. But the thing with Raspberry Pi 3 and other single board computers is it is more about the software. It is more about programming. And I can program in some way, in a very crude way, in C. Especially with the Arduino, it is possible for me to do a lot of different projects. But when it comes to more complex things like the single board computer, where you have to include internet things and all kinds of code, it's not my style, I would say. It's not my favorite kind of project. So I always, in such a case, for example, with the Raspberry Pi ambient lighting, I was also using software by other people. So it's not really my accomplishment. I'm just putting together the hardware and then use software from others. That's not very exciting for me, I think. So home automation, if I do something like that, I would use software from other people as well and only put together the hardware. And once again, one day I will surely do it, of course, because it is interesting. But right now it's not my priority because, like I said, I'm not the software guy. I'm more the hardware guy. Next question from Ahmed Ashraf Tanvir. I've seen a video of yours about DIY power bank from old laptop battery. You said the protection circuit inside the battery pack is also usable. Will you explain it a bit more? Well, all I can say right now is that it is usable in some form. Going into detail right now is not possible. I can put it on my to-do list. I think I have it on my to-do list actually. Maybe it will happen soon in the future, maybe later. I will not forget it. Polsec Eric asks, you was interested in electronic back in school, and at which age you decided that you want to become an electrical engineer? What's your opinion of AliExpress? What are you doing in your real life job? Finally, when you started to play with Arduino? Well, those are a lot of questions. Well, I was not particularly interested in electronics. I was more interested in computers and programming and all that stuff around it. The topic electronics was actually the one topic in physics which I didn't like because it was a topic that I didn't understand properly. But nowadays I understand it better. At which age you decided that you want to become an electrical engineer? I think that was at the age of 17 or 18. It was at the end of school and I had to look in which kind of field I wanted to go with my studies, like electrical engineering. But back then I wanted to renewable energies. But I also thought that the job field for renewable energies was pretty limited. So I searched for an alternative which also included renewable energies and had something else in it as well. So when later I can apply in another job as well. And that's how I ended in electrical engineering. What's your opinion of AliExpress? I like it. I started using it about 2 years ago when they still use credit cards. Nowadays they also use GiroPay, I think the service is called, which makes it even easier. And I always received my products, I never had problems, so I recommend it. What are you doing in your real life job? Well, currently I'm primarily a student. I'm doing my Master of Science degree. But along the way I also produce web videos about electrical engineering, which you might be familiar with. That also means that I create sketches, schematic, pictures, projects, ideas, all that kind of stuff for everyone to enjoy for free. And that's how I make a living while studying for my Masters of Science degree. Finally, when you started to play with Arduino? Well, I think that was around the time I started playing around with LED cubes. As you might know, LED cubes are pretty awesome. But the thing about them is that you can control them easily without a microcontroller. So that was the time I looked for a very simple microcontroller platform which was easy to use. And that's how I found the Arduino and started working with it, discovering how it works, how easy it is to use and what you can do with it. And that's how I got started. And I think that was around 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure. Next question from Monster Aya, who asks, why don't you make more videos regarding motorcycle electricals like rectifiers, CDIs, converting your halogen bulb to LED headlight, and hopefully it would not be Arduino based. Thanks and more power to you, Sir GreatScott. Well, the thing is, I think I used to do 1 or 2 projects about my mopeds back in the days, but those videos were pretty unpopular, to say the least. And so I went away from such projects with the moped and did more projects here on the workbench, which are more popular, more accessible, and it's not for a specific section of people who own motorcycle and mopeds. And that's why I think those workbench projects, videos are more suitable for the channel. That doesn't mean I will never do a motorcycle video again. I did one, I think, 1 or 2 months ago about the SMS GPS security system, which was pretty awesome and well received from many viewers. And something like that as well I can do in the future again, when there's an awesome project that I have in mind for it. But I will not specifically go into the section of motorcycles or mopeds. Let's take this one. Agar Haldar. How do you recommend an amateur to learn about electronics? Should they be studying books or experimenting building circuits or anything else? Because after tinkering with electronics for a while, I still find it difficult to design anything other than simple circuits from prior knowledge. Well, what you experience is completely normal. Designing new circuits from your knowledge is very complicated, so building up from prior knowledge is definitely the way to go. And what I can recommend is a book, The Arts of Electronics, is pretty awesome. Of course, it's a mix of theory and practical guidelines, which will not tell you 100% what to do with electronics, how to make your own circuits, but it's a good base and you can go from there, do different kinds of projects, learn something on your own, and in the end it takes time, a lot of time and a lot of practice to make own circuits, but you will get there if you try and do projects pretty regularly. Okay. Falconic Loki Katazora asks, you have a really cool accent. Not to sound creepy. I just love linguistics and accents especially. Where is it from exactly? If you know, of course. Well, my accent is from Germany and especially from Saxony. Hemappa Pen... Sorry, I can't read it correctly. Says, have you considered making some mining rig for cryptocurrency mining, ETH or something else? It would be awesome if you could make some serials about that if you're interested. Well, I definitely heard about cryptocurrency and I think it's pretty interesting. But once again, I think that's one of those projects which is more for the Raspberry Pi, which is more about software than hardware. So I can put it on my to-do list, but I'm not sure when I will get to it. Okay, next question. Iago Pereira asks, what do you do for a living? YouTube videos. How old are you? 24. When and why did you start tinkering with electronics? I started tinkering because it was fun. I'm not sure. I started electronics with my job training, and back then it was just fun building circuits. Like it was simple circuit switches, lights, and switch, light goes on, simple stuff like that. And then I got more into the IC department with integrated circuits, logic circuits, 5x5 timers and all that good stuff. And just the complexity of what you can do with so little components was so interesting that I got into tinkering, trying out all kinds of circuits, what they can do, how they behave. And I think that's how I got into tinkering with electronics. Sai Kurana says, I burned the Wi-Fi chip on my Raspberry Pi 3. Tell your worst magic smoke experience. Oh, that's a tough question because I rarely let the magic smoke escape. It does not happen often, but I think the worst magic smoke accident was with a voltage regulator. I think an LM7805. I'm not even sure how I did it, but it just happened. I wasn't paying attention. I think I wired something up. I turned on the power supply. I looked away for a second and then the breadboard was just full of smoke. I turned off the power supply immediately, but the regulator was already dead and a lot of smoke escaped. Yasir asks, are you doing some home automation or home security video in the near future? Home automation, I already talked about that with the Raspberry Pi question, so it is on my to-do list. Maybe it will happen, I don't know when. About the security thing, since I got a garage half a year ago, I'm currently thinking about doing some kind of security system inside the garage. I'm currently not sure what kind of system that will be. Maybe a video, proximity sensor, just lights to scare people, or lights and then take a picture of the intruder, or just an alarm or something like that. I'm not sure yet, but I think that's a possibility that might happen soon. But no promises. Asem asks, please show us how do you edit your video? I mean, which software, etc. Complete thanks. Well, I use Adobe Premiere Pro for the video editing, and for the audio I use Audacity. And that's pretty much it. Jaka Krbak asks, are you planning to do a meetup or collaboration with any YouTuber? The YouTubers I would do a collaboration with, which are also in the electronics field, are pretty far away. I think there are no YouTubers in Germany which do electronics and I think are suitable to do a collaboration with. So currently I don't have any plans for meetups or collaborations or something like that. Andrew asks, what university did you study at? What subjects did you take? And have you ever failed one? So according to what I said before with the personal information, I don't want to say which university I currently attend or I attended. And what subjects did I take? Obviously the subjects for the electrical power engineering. I'm not gonna go through the complete list. There are a lot of subjects you have to complete. And have you ever failed one? Yes, there has been one class that I failed, but only the first time. The second time I passed, and that was actually physics. Now, I'm not bad at physics. I liked it in school and I still liked it in university. But the thing is, the professor is very strict and his tests are very brutal. He's pretty famous for kicking out students from the university. And that's why I failed the first time. But like I said, I passed the second time. Okay, last question from Facebook. So I'm sorry that I could not answer all 180 questions. That's not possible with such a video. But if your question did not get answered, don't be sad. Keep it in mind, there will be another Q&A video sometime in the future. Not sure when, but it will happen. Random pick, not from the top. I pick you. No, I already did that. Are you doing some home automation? No. Okay, let's try again. Random pick. Dang it, it loaded. Okay, random pick. Your question. Ha. Oh boy. Are you planning for DIY drone with camera? And can we make a homemade ESC for BLDC motor? Like I said, I started a drone, a quadcopter video. It was too time consuming. I stopped working on it. I don't know when I will continue. So DIY drone with camera or something like that in the near future, not happening. It's still on my to-do list, but it's in the lower section. I'm not sure when I will get to it. And the next part of the question was, can we make a homemade ESC for BLDC motors? I think so. That is also currently on my to-do list. It is, I wouldn't say at the top, but it is in the upper section. So I'm currently looking into it and I will see what I can do. Okay, that was Facebook. For the last part, let's go to Twitter and see what people asked. Let's see how many people answered. 36. That's pretty good. Not as insane as Facebook. That's definitely manageable. I don't think we will do the 36 questions, but we will see how many. Okay. Again, I will start from the top. Those are the oldest questions. Michael asks, any advice or tips for high school students interested in electronics or electrical engineering? My only tip is do projects. It's really as simple as that. Once you started doing simple projects like a 5x5 timer, for example, which just lets an LED blink, you can build the circuit, you see, oh great, it works, it's an achievement, it's an accomplishment. And once you get into that, you will start to think about, okay, why does that LED blink? And you look into the IC and you see that the IC is made out of different components. And then you start thinking about, okay, what does this comparator do? What does this transistor do? How does this transistor do that? Why is there a resistor and a capacitor next to it? Why is there an RC circuit which charges up, which controls the 5x5 timer? And it all builds up, and eventually you understand not only your project, but you understand every component of it. You understand the functional principle of it. And that's a pretty good way to learn electronics with projects, because you learn so much along the way. I think it's a saying, It's not about the project, it's about the way you take, something like that. And I think that's very true with electronics. That Mo Brainstorm asks, do you prefer repairing things or just buying new ones? Hard to say. Sometimes I enjoy repairing things. But the thing nowadays with electronics, commercial electronics you buy, is that they are so complicated, it usually doesn't make sense to repair them because you don't have the components, you don't have the schematic, and it takes hours to just get into the whole circuit and understand what's going on. And in those cases, it's just the best to buy new stuff, replace the old stuff. Maurice Markwort asks, what are you going to do after your study? Work for a company or only do YouTube, if that is possible? Keep up the interesting videos. Well, I'm not completely sure at this point. Now, doing YouTube, only YouTube, is possible due to the revenue from YouTube ads, the support from my Patreon supporters, my affiliate links. There is enough money to keep the production going when I'm finished with my studies. But of course, I could also work for a company because it is also useful for me to work for a company for a specific time since you can gain a lot of work experience there. So at this point, I'm not sure, but I think right after I finished my studies, I will probably continue doing YouTube for a specific amount of time and then look for a job in another company. But all speculation, I'm not sure how it goes. I'm happy how it goes at the moment. Nicholas asks, will you come one day to a maker fair? Sure. If one is nearby, I can drop by. I think so. Yeah. Let me know if one is near Saxony. Tori asks, which of your videos is your favorite? Ooh, also a hard question. I did 170 videos at the moment, so it's definitely hard to pick a favorite. What I have in mind right now is a project that's not too old. That's why I remember it being a lot of fun, I think. It was the Raspberry Pi Game Boy. That was a pretty awesome project. I still use it. I was pretty amazed how well it worked back then. I actually didn't expect that. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah, so I think that's one of my favorite projects and videos. But there are others as well, which I can't think of right now, but there are. Okay. Bob Stoats asks, as an embedded programming language for projects such as you do you prefer C, C++, Python, or assembly, or ? I prefer C because I'm familiar with it. It's easy to use for me. Assembly, I've tried assembly. It's very hard, and for big projects it's really not suitable. And with C++ and Python, I have not worked a lot yet, so I can't say how easy to work with they are. So for now, C is the way to go for me. Okay, last Twitter question and last question for this Q&A video. Oh boy, which one should I take? Which one is good for the end? Okay, last question from Mauro, who asks, do you have a box of old or not used or broken electronics products? Well, I used to have one, but I recently got rid of it. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a box with electronics inside. I have one right above me. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it in the video. So here's my box. That's the box which I have since the beginning of my job training. Inside are all the circuits, pretty much all the circuits I ever created. right from the beginning when it was horrible to nowadays when it was horrible. No, I think it's decent. And yeah, I will probably keep that box because it's interesting to look back where you started and where you are now. And it's always interesting to see the difference. Okay, and with that being said, I hope you liked this unscripted question and answer video. If you like this style, if you want more unscripted stuff, let me know in the comments. I can probably do that. And yeah, that's it, I guess. As always, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Stay creative, and I will see you next time.